Oh, they're remaking it. Well, they're making a Cruella movie with Emma Stone. I really go up and down on Emma Stone.
I mean, whatever. Rephrase that.
Welcome to the Rewatchers on the pod. Hopefully no one's watching us, but we watch The Truman Show. My name's Mitchell Marshall, here hosting along with...
Tyler McKinley.
Justin Hammer.
Tyler Harris.
Gwen Hammer.
All right, so this is... Man, I think it's a classic. Is this qualified as a classic? Like, is this like a seminal movie, like an important movie?
In my pantheon, I would put it there.
Any movie I didn't see between the years 1995 and 2000 that everyone talked about, then yes.
Okay.
That's what qualifies as a classic.
This is...
Yes.
Jim Carrey goes just the right amount of dramatic. He would then follow this up with The Majestic, where he tried to go too dramatic. Anyway, Tyler, why don't you tell us what happened in The Truman Show?
So quick. This guy's making a TV show, and everyone's watching it, and it's basically just watching this TV show, and Jim Carrey is the person on the TV show, and stars are falling out of the sky, but it's okay because it's explained on the radio. And then he keeps going, and everyone's still watching him. I can't do this.
Okay,
I can't do this.
All right. I should have.
I realized how many times I said they're watching him, and I'm not gonna subject people to 4 minutes of that and then be like, oh, well, let's just skip past all the watching him. Now he's in a boat and he's out at sea, and they turn the storm on real high, like the highest it can go, and he's like, whoa!
And
the
Ed
guy's
Harris is just ready for him to die.
And then he gets to the door and he pushes the button, and he comes to terms with God, and he bows out and walks out the door.
I mean, that was pretty good.
Yeah. And then we all see what else is on TV.
And then the old ladies are watching him, and then everyone flips over to reruns of Friends. I gotta say, I don't know when the last time I saw this was. It's definitely been a long time. But the thing I thought about most is the overall concept and the ethics behind it. Because generally, like, I'm not like a stickler about ethics, but I was like,
oh yes, we know.
This is the worst manipulation, and it's inhumane, but also it's kind of entertaining. And would I watch it? Probably. No, there were some horrible stuff. So let's talk first about the general concept, because it is now turned into a there's a condition. There's like a Truman Show condition now. People can think that their lives are always being watched and filmed. As far as a premise, I almost want there to be more. Like, this is the best episode of Black Mirror.
Sure, yeah.
I wanted more from this movie. I wanted more about how the actors chose to go on the show, what their lives were, quote unquote, outside the show, because, like, the wife, she has to live her life on the show, and so even if she's rich, she can't cash in on it. Like, what's the motivation to be on the show?
She essentially can't have a life because she has to be available
exactly
24/7. She has to sleep in the same bed as him, even if during the day it's not like she can pop out into LA and do something, and then, like, how fast does she have to get back to the dome if they're like, he's coming to the hospital and you got to pretend to be doing surgery? Which, so the thing is, how did they populate the hospital so quickly? And how well thought out are every building? Because that one building, obviously not, because they had a green room behind an elevator door.
Well, yeah, they built that whole building as basically an exit, right? Like, it's just, yeah.
I hate to think, like, what could be real, but when I thought about the actual logistics of doing this, morals aside, because a corporation adopted a baby, I was just like, how would all these different little elements work? But I'm fascinated by it. I want another one, and I want to know more about it. And Ed Harris does really good at sadistic, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah. That's
I think they picked the perfect tone to pull that shit off with. Like, they picked a tone that was a little quirky. I mean, casting Jim Carrey was a perfect choice because you strike a line between I guess Jim Carrey's other roles and movies of being way outlandish and a little bit more dramatic, to the point where everything feels just a little bit. And they chose like a weird stylization of like the 50s, except it's more modern.
Yeah. It's got a Pleasantville vibe, but it's kind of not.
Yeah, so that kind of area it rides in between gives it just enough credibility and believability to feel the drama and the real feelings of the situation while still being like, lets the viewer wave logistical things aside, I feel like. At least that's how I felt. Like, the stuff with the elevator and like the light falling down, even though that light being that high up in the sky would do nothing. It's just like,
millions.
it's one of those movies that strikes the tone of like, let's just go along for this fun idea, even though I was frustrated by a lot of it. This is my first time seeing it.
Is it? Oh man, you have to buy into it a little bit.
Oh, I love it. I think
I do too.
Because to me, like I feel like for me, so much of this movie is, I mean, when you boil down this movie, it's like this story about a creator, I guess, or some like omnipotent force and a person who is learning that exists and that there are things out of his control. And like, I think for me, like structurally, that's probably the thing I like most about this movie is probably the way it's structured. It drops you just immediately into like kind of the way that people are probably watching the show. And the like early on there's like no music, like they're just cutting to different angles that are all over, and some of them have that vignetting around the edges, you know, because they're stuffed into things that cameras shouldn't be stuffed into. And I think it like feels so weird immediately off the bat, and then you have that light fall within like the first 10 minutes of the movie, and it's just like it's so quick to get into that.
But they pace it well.
Yeah.
They don't overwhelm you, and then you get a montage towards the end. You of course get when Sylvia is trying to confront him about it, and that happens way earlier in the movie than I thought. And so all these little things, and I just think Jim Carrey does an incredible job of having it drive him crazy. And that's where I think he strikes the perfect tone between comedy and drama, is like his frustration, his anger, but clearly like this life that he's lived is so unique, and he is a good person. And so it allows him to do some of his zany comedy. And I think this was really his first step out of, you know, anything from Ace Ventura and The Mask. Robin Williams was actually the only other actor I could find who was considered for this, which that's just crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But those are two guys who really went into serious roles and did some flops and did some really interesting things. I kind of want to get your overall thoughts, Gwen, since this was your first viewing.
Like I said, I liked it, but I wanted more from it. Like, it was a little bit lighter on... I went in expecting a heavier, more dramatic movie, which I guess I shouldn't go into movies with expectations. But, like, I wanted a dramatic moment somewhere in the middle where Truman was doubting himself, doubting what he had seen, doubting what he was witnessing, and then pushing through with his escape plan. And it just seemed like it went from I'm living a real life to I'm living a fake life really quickly,
Yeah.
I guess.
Those puzzle pieces, he didn't know exactly what was going on, but the general puzzle pieces of this is a lie came together really quick as he started trusting his wife a lot less.
Yeah.
And we kind of see that was always a manipulated relationship, which also I never thought about that, but, well, I guess I did, but she has to sleep with him?
Yeah. Well, those security
it's
guys
part of
are
the
like,
job.
you never see anything.
Right.
The window blows open. But this felt like more like a short story rather than like a fully fleshed out.
Yeah. Well, and I think there were a lot more elements. I'm glad it's not too much longer, but I know Noah Emmerich, is that his name? The best friend?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. First of all, one of the most underrated actors. Please watch The Americans. And Miracle, of course. Great assistant coach for hockey. But he said that his character had a background where he was a lot more torn about the manipulation. Mm-hmm. And that's why that speech at the end where he's like, I would never lie to you, is actually a lot more impactful. And he said it also drove him, like, he was supposed to be doing drugs. And they were just like, we can't put this in there. So I know it was supposed to be darker in general, and a little bit more, not science fiction-y, but just what it was supposed to explore those things a little bit more. But I am worried that two more big ideas and this becomes a mess.
Yeah.
I think I think the economy of like the way that stuff is handled, because for me that scene with his friend when he's talking to, and he tells him he would never lie to him, like that feels like that moment you get, just a moment of that questioning that you're looking for, and I guess like for me that's kind of enough, because I like what this movie does after that, which is then shifting. You're spending less time with Truman and more with like the control room stuff. You're seeing more of like kind of behind the curtain. Yeah. And I really like that, because then that moment where like they lose him, essentially, you don't feel like you're in there with him anymore. Yeah. And so you also start to feel that separation, which I think kind of emulates that audience interaction that people are having in that time. And yeah, it's really interesting. I think that because it is so tightly paced, like I think you could afford to put some more of those things in there. Yeah. But for me, that doesn't make this suffer in any way. Sometimes I do appreciate that people can make a movie like this, because it goes against my tendencies. Yeah. I would not be the guy who would make those tough decisions to make it as tight as it is. But yeah, I love it so much.
Yeah,
so
cutting
good.
is hard. Tyler McKinley, I'm curious what you thought about the fan interjections. We have the guy in the bathtub. We have the old ladies hugging pillows. We obviously have Sylvia pops up a little later, and then the people at the bar. Here's the thing. I have an addictive personality. I don't know how I would turn this off if I was into it. I do think if they made this today, there would be a lot more drama infused, because you can see they do these little things to prod drama, and obviously she wants to get out after he almost killed her, so she's going to leave him. That would be good drama, but you'd think that would get manipulated more. So did you think that all that viewership made you understand the show's impact, or did it take you out of his story a little bit? What do you think about those little interruptions?
I really like them. I don't know, this movie for me is like, I like everything stylistically a lot, and all the style choices I really like a lot, and that's one of them. I think that I definitely thought about logistics, and especially how those logistics would work in now versus when this movie was made, just with the internet being such a pervasive culture in our lives.
You'd almost have he would not be able to know about the internet.
Yeah, like that would be so much more challenging, and like they showed a little bit in the movie, which I really liked, of people like, just bombing scenes, coming in through the window and be like, I got on the Truman Show, and like people parachuting in and stuff. Is the only way to get in. I don't know how that guy got in. He must have like opened a panel on the top of the dome.
He knocked out one of the stars.
The dome you can see from space.
But no, I really like all those cutaways. I think it's fun, because then you can... Because that's what you'd be wondering. If they didn't have those, you'd be wondering that the whole time. Like, what does the outside world think of this? And it showed different people having different reactions. That guy in the bathtub was very broken up at the end, versus other people seemed to be pretty... And like, especially thought about those two old women. I was like, oh man, that's good. They got to see the end of the show before they died. Like, made me kind of happy.
Kind of seemed like it was their life. They were like falling asleep on the couch together, watching the show and prodding each other awake at good moments.
I wonder if they were both widowed. They both they were retired, and like, this is just what we do. We're gonna Grey Gardens this shit and watch the Truman Show all the time. I will say I love the product placement, and that would be my favorite part of being in the show. I love when she does the most obvious ones, but when the best friend is just drinking the beer, he's like, man,
the label's always out.
It's a little bit smoother. Yeah, the way they tilted. I think some brands missed out by not having their product, because I don't think there were any real products. Yeah. That's what also made me, because he picks up the newspaper every day. And I was like, man, they have to write a newspaper every day?
Yeah.
But then he picks up, everyone keeps getting Dog Fancy. Real Magazine ended in 2015, Prince dying. But I was like, I wonder if he read that, if there would be an ad for something, or there would be something about something happening in the world that would confuse him. And just having that limited access, but if that's the way your whole life has been, then it is what it is. Yeah. But you could pay me to be a person in this cast. Yeah.
I will say, I think my favorite product placement stuff is just the two guys who stop him on the way to work and shove him into a fucking wall right next to an ad, like a different ad every day. I was like, really? Like, you haven't, there's not a better way to do this than just have two old men strong arm him into position?
At first, I thought they were like trying to stop him from seeing something.
Oh, yeah.
And nope. It's all
Just gotta
about.
get that shot, baby.
Well, when they
Gotta
talk
get it.
about how much money this thing makes, because it's just constantly, and obviously at home they show that the ads can scroll across and you can put a
Yeah.
phone number. I'm just like, yeah, I guess you could create an entire empire. They did a catalog. Catalogs used to make so much money for like Macy's and J.C. Penney and everything. So I just think it's fascinating. But I don't know if you're the mom. I guess you can disappear for large swaths of time. So it's really only a few people. But then if those people take vacations to not be in his life, he has to get more curious. And they talk about scaring him back, which is maybe the worst, to infiltrate trauma. And that's why obviously the dad sneaks back in to try and save him, but then apparently gets coerced into going back and
It's just cool as being on the show
him.
again.
They
Yeah.
gave him a lot of money.
That's another moment I wanted more of. Like, what did they offer this guy
Yeah.
that stomped out any conscience that he had?
Well, and that, yeah, I thought about that too, because I was like, maybe it is just a thing where it's like he literally feels like that's his child because he did raise him in a way, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I wonder how much of it was just that, like, just like he's like, I'll do whatever to be, you know, and like,
That's a good point.
I don't know, but I would have like, yeah, I think that would have been a nice thing to see, like whatever that was. But,
I would.
yeah.
Laura Linney breaks down out of fear. She seems like, you're right in that she's probably making good money, but she has no life.
Yeah.
I really wonder. Like, it'd be funny if they put her in a coma for a while and just let her take a little trip or something. But she must be kind of a terrible person to not fall in love with him, but to just constantly be okay, because it seems like everyone else around him has some moral quandary about it, and she does not seem to break in that way. And he says, "You don't love me." He can tell that it's an act, and that is sad. And I kind of want to know more about her.
I will say, like, one of the moments that stuck out to me this time watching it was like early on when they just show like the cast interviews and they're interviewing her, and she's like, "You're just like a part of history." Like, the way she's interviewed is such like, it's such a, to me it's such a grating, like, it's that very like disingenuous just like actor thing that's like, I mean, it's art and we just get to be a part of it, and it's such a blessing to, it's just like that feeling. I was like, ooh, I hate that so much. But
Watching those interviews made me picture these people as like Instagram influencers like having to document your life and always be thinking of creating content, and like, I'm gonna take a picture of my child doing this so that I can have a post today so that I can keep my numbers up. And it just made me think of like that weird meshing of real life with performance.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, with social media, a couple years after this, they did a show called The Joe Schmo Show, and it was about a guy who thought he was on a reality show, but he was the only non-actor. And even that, there was even some moral things about that people were pretty frustrated with, but that was maybe the next evolution of this, because you think when this came out, there was Real World, but there was no Survivor, there was no Bachelor, there was no Kardashians. It's really interesting not to see where reality TV has escalated to, but where YouTube and where social media have taken us with something like this and how it would happen. But I guess if you keep him in the bubble, I do wonder, like, should they have let him go camping? And remember one time they said, we went to the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
Like, you slept the whole way. I was like, I wonder if you do that and you block off like a huge camping area and you actually shoot it there just to make him feel something, but then you might give him the itch for more travel. But I was like, I feel like they're almost binding him too tight where you knew something was going to have to happen.
Yeah. I do love that, like, the picture. It's, like, very clearly not around Mount Rushmore.
Oh my gosh.
It's, like, some backlot, just this thing that's supposed to be in the background of a shot, and it's so good. I love that.
It's interesting that they did that, and then I wonder if as an adult you can't. But I think the guy went to college there. So, like, yeah, the school's just in the town.
Yeah.
And it would have been more interesting if they kind of let him live organically, but it's clear, like, once they had hired Laura Linney, they were like, well, he can't be interested in this other woman. Not just because they didn't know she was going to tattle. They just thought, oh, he has eyes for another girl. We got to get her out of here. Yeah. And that every time, like, the secret police come out and just pull someone away, and he has to have seen that 3 or 4 times in his life. Like, that's very disconcerting.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a more, like, why wouldn't you run with that? That's drama. That's like, you'd want that for your show. I don't know. Her character's kind of like a missed opportunity, I feel like, a little bit. She feels very brushed under the rug. And maybe you don't want to make this whole movie like a love story per se, but it's like, it just feels like, okay, we've got her in the scene. We introduce her. Okay, now she's just a viewer. And that's really all she boils down to for the rest of the movie. Kind of, she has that conversation at the end, like not at the end, very early on actually, but the phone call. Yeah. But I don't know. I felt like I wanted to see more of that struggle and more, I don't know, some other, because I didn't really feel, I guess, what you're saying with the friend, because he's being fed that line, during his emotional speech. So I didn't feel any sort of genuine emotion from anyone else in the film towards him, really. And like we already talked about before, the dad, there's an absence of that. Like, there's no delving into his motivations or anything. So it's like, I don't know, I kind of felt I wanted just one more character to just be a little bit more pulling on the strings. Because to me, the structure, I don't like the structure of this movie. I feel like, I don't hate it. I don't think it's awful. But it was the thing that I was kind of like, oh, I wish we would have, some of the things that they spend more time on, I wish they would have spent less time on. Like, they hit all the right notes. I just wish they would have changed the amount of time they spent on them, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like we spent a lot of time repeating a lot of the things in the first act into the second act of, like, establishing things we've already established. And I wish it kind of would have been a little bit more starting earlier and kind of more of a ramp up instead of everything like coming all at once. Those
distortions in his realization.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like the big thing for me, though, is just that there just need to be like one more character that really, drove some emotional connection with him to help it, I don't know, to help me feel more in this movie. I mean, I enjoyed my time with the movie. It's just, I didn't really feel a whole lot. I feel like I was just like, yeah. And then it didn't make me think about like, morals and stuff, those weird things.
Yeah. I've definitely seen this as an adult, like post 20. I don't know how much attention I was paying, but I was like, Ed Harris is a bad person. And I wonder if I had really considered that before that. Setting aside that he was going to let him die.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the actor.
Oh, no.
Like, I've seen him in so many bad roles. He is a bad person.
No.
Look at him in Radio. He's like a dick coach. He's like...
I was thinking Westworld, he's pretty terrible. No, his character, because I don't know. Oh, his character has one word, isn't it? It's Christoph. Oh, gosh. It's
perfect.
I like that the opening credits are the fake, the opening credits for the show.
I wasn't sure the closing credits were going to be fake. Yeah. I was like... because I was like doing something else while I was watching, and so like I didn't see them start, so I didn't see any names I recognized. I was like, wait, is there something after?
So after this is over, I want him to experience the world, but I also just wonder if he gets with Sylvia and they just literally go live on a remote island in Fiji, because he must have a ton of money. One, they clearly made all this money off of him. Two, they said 1.4 billion people watched the very beginning. So even if only 200 million people around the world are watching this, like, my dude's a celeb. So I assume he has that money. And so I'm curious, but his attachment to Fiji was because of a lie that her dad actor told him. But what do they do with the dome? Does that guy get arrested? That's the other thing. I did want another sympathetic character, and it does seem like the best friend was supposed to do that. But I wonder if everyone else is just so enamored to be part of this. You're like, yeah, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I ride my bike past his house over and over again for 6 hours. Which, by the way, you'd think a mad genius would have a little bit more inconsistency than that, but it is so much to try and control, like, so many people. But yeah, a lot of people out of work because of him escaping. I'm looking out for the economy in LA.
They definitely stuck another baby in there immediately.
Yeah, if the world didn't have a problem with it until he broke, why have a problem with it?
Well, and enough people were upset about it, and it made enough money that there's no way they were giving it up.
We'll do anything for money.
I mean, there have to be people who would pay to have the Truman Show experience where you get to be Truman for a few days, right? Yeah. They just start renting it out to people.
Or people would sell their baby. Yeah. Okay. I'm curious, what would be the worst part if you were 22 and you found out that your whole life had been filmed?
God.
Other than masturbation. Other than masturbation. I think it would be like the little white lies you tell. I think it'd be like the exaggerations, because everyone knows everything about you. Yeah. It would be the little... it'd be the way you know that you've been obsessing over something or someone, and everyone's seeing you do these really flawed things. And I guess if you're in a tight, wholesome environment, like they are able to limit some of those ideas even being in his mind. Like, he's only seeing so much of movies and books. But yeah, what would be the worst thing that people would have seen you do if you didn't know you were being filmed anywhere?
You know those moments that keep you up at night, like you in high school doing something dumb that still makes you cringe however many years later?
Every day.
I can think of 5 of those right now.
There's one that I will never say out loud that just kills me every time I think about it, and everyone would know. Everyone would have seen it. Oh my God.
The thing about existing outside of this is, and the thing is, you can't blame that person, and you assume everyone has that. That's the thing about right now on the internet, everyone who gets angry about anything, it's like, man, you have a major flaw that we just don't get to see. And that's what's hard about being a public figure. But for him, he had no choice, and I think that is another ethical dilemma. But yeah, all the awkward things I said and I did, and
oh God, yeah. Any relationship as in high school, I never want to see any of it ever again.
yeah,
God.
They said they put together like highlight reels. I wonder if they put together highlight reels of like his if he had other relationships.
It's the same guy who makes all those NBA highlight videos on YouTube that I like. They boil the game down to 9 minutes
And puts them up
30
seconds after the game is over.
Truman's Day in 12 minutes. Perfect.
MLG
And every day you
highlights.
just watch that
Truman
one.
Show.
Highlights, and all it is made shots. Come on, man.
Tyler Harris tonight. They lead with something good. They're like,
Right.
he won his swim meet, but then they end with something bad. But then he leaned in for a kiss on the girl in the play with him, and she was like, no. Get out of here, Mr. Jew.
Which,
Bro.
honestly, if it's in a play, then I'm probably doing the right thing, and she fucked up the scene. There's a script. I'm not going off
No,
script.
you guys are in the play together. It's
Oh,
not
okay,
of the
gotcha.
play.
Yeah, no,
if you,
that was just too close to reality for me to experience, so I didn't want to. I just wanted to. Ugh.
wow, everyone else messed up the scene, huh, Tyler? It was never you. Well,
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the reality, what you were actually saying, is too close. To
It's kind of like this time where we were selling my childhood house, all right? And I had just gone to eat somewhere, and I way overate, and I was super bloated, right? And I came home, and apparently, unbeknownst to me, my mother had given permission to the people buying the house to come in and start scraping the wallpaper off. I thought I was the only one home. So I walk up the stairs, go into my bathroom. I take off my shirt because I'm gonna get in the shower, and I'm like super bloated. And I like just slap my stomach. I was like, "Hello, fat ass." And I guess I didn't register that I had been hearing scraping, and the scraping just stops. And I was like, "This guy thinks I'm talking to him."
But he had high enough. He did have high enough self-esteem not to be like, "Hello."
Like, he thinks I just walked by the doorway. I was like, "What's up, fat ass?"
And she just cranked the shower on.
But that's what it would be. It would be it's everyone like that, you know? Like hearing because I talk to myself all the time.
Oh,
And I say things that don't make any fucking sense because I've started the sentence in my head. And
well,
it comes
the
out later,
offensive
so-
things.
Yeah.
Like, in a car, I'm just cussing people out. I was thinking about that because my hockey team lost their game today. I was remembering last year they played the Nashville Predators in a playoff series, and I remember getting really angry and being like, I hate everyone in Nashville. They're all horrible, idiotic. I didn't know I was going with that. But I just said the worst things about a city I've never been to that I actually quite want to go to. And I was just like, you say a lot of really horrendous things and don't think twice about it because you're alone. Mm-hmm. And maybe my mind's just more poisoned than his would have been true. But yeah, that is a
I mean, they go a little bit into that with like his stuff in the mirror that he does. I'm like, man, his stuff's pretty tame. Like, mine would be so embarrassing.
That's the other thing is if they never show sex, what else do they not show? Did he have a safe space in the shower? Did they just only do it from a high up angle?
I mean, you got to do stuff on.
I mean, you need something
Live
for your
television.
premium subscription.
That's true. I wonder if there's like the 24/7 channel, and then when he does something inappropriate, they show highlights. When he's sleeping, you know, maybe they double screen it and they show you like some other stuff that was going on. And then if you pay
I did think that while
for
watching this,
Truman Show Plus,
there is a Christoph edit out there somewhere of this whole experience where we have the sex scenes, and because that man is definitely getting off on those sex scenes.
that's you know that all that staff is seeing the things that the public can't see. The way the people in that control room just relished everything, I was like, this is trouble. This is creepy.
How stressful it would be to be one of those musicians, like writing like live music as you're going. You have to like improv shit. Like,
Was it, Paul Giamatti's in there? I feel like that was even then below Paul Giamatti.
Well, it's hilarious because like that feels like such a shocking thing because it's just panning across a bunch of faces you don't recognize, and then just Paul Giamatti's mug is right there. And like, oh, hi, Paul.
Paul Giamatti.
But yeah, that's I did think about like. As a society, there are still like things similar to this that we do. I mean, we've talked about like reality shows and stuff like that, but have you guys heard of the Up documentaries?
No.
So I think they started in the 50s, but it was basically these filmmakers who were like, and psychologists who were like, we're going to do a documentary series that basically follows people through their entire lives. And it's not like 24/7. What it is they release a new movie every 7 years. So you're seeing a person at 7, at 14, 21, 28, 35. I'm trying to remember how high they are now. Looks like 56 or something. But yeah, so there's like, I think there's 9 of these now. But it is really interesting. And it was kind of the thing of like, early on, like trying to look at nature versus nurture, and like you're looking at these kids, you know, at all these developmental standpoints, and like then trying to find out if there are correlations between those things and stuff, and that's really interesting. And then even thinking about like I know you talked about the Before trilogy a little while ago, but like even adapting that into like where you're doing fictional narratives and stuff, but you're still using time as that tool, like real time as a tool to affect the audience in some way, or to affect performances or whatever it is. And so, yeah, that it's really interesting. I don't know. I just think it's an interesting fascination that we have as people. So. And
then how it gets manipulated, because you think any show, anything is going to get manipulated by editing. That was one thing the Truman Show actually almost couldn't do. It's interesting to me that they showed, I didn't know if they would hide something like Sylvia trying to expose the truth, but other than that, the way we manipulate truth, and then how much producers manipulate reality shows, like in ITMs, like in with the one-on-one interviews that you see and everything, it's kind of creepy what we do with it. And then when you talk about those kids and doing that at every age, like can they say no when they're 18?
Yeah.
And before that, there's a lot of quandary right now about Instagram families and whether it's ethical for them to use. Some people say use their kids to make money, which they're a part of it, and I definitely see there is not consent from the kid. The kid doesn't know any better. Yeah. I think there's definitely going to be times where it's probably unhealthy, and other times where it's probably fine. So we can't police that, but it is interesting how this is leaked more and more into actual life.
Yeah. Well, is it even just Instagram families, or does it extend to me too? Because it's like, my kids can't consent to me putting their pictures on the internet.
But you got to think that like a personal album, which you can to some degree think of Facebook as, depending how private you have it, is so different from a public, because there's public figures who show their kids from day one. And there's some like Dax Shepard and Kristen Bell do not, and Lin-Manuel Miranda is like this. They really don't want their kids' faces out there until they can really make the determination that they are okay with that. And that's got to be really hard to hide, you know, with fan cameras and paparazzi, which I think are actually fairly respectful of it. But I think if you're a public figure, it is a huge issue. I think for us, I think it depends how you do it, but everyone wants attention and everyone wants likes, so I am sure there's somebody with 77 Facebook friends who does the dumbest shit for their kids to get them attention. Cool. I'll talk about a couple quick production things. So they tried to get this going since 1991. It was originally called The Malcolm Show, and it was a little bit more of a thriller. And this guy named Scott Rudin, who's a pretty famous producer, purchased it for $1 million and decided to lighten it up. And the film went through Brian De Palma, Tim Burton, Terry Gilliam, Brian Sonnenfeld, and Steven Spielberg before Peter Weir signed on in 95 to direct it. He said they gave him an $80 million budget. He said, I'll do it for 60. Of course, they're going to hire you. If you're like, yeah, I'm going to do it for 75% of your budget. I think the only other casting interesting thing was Dennis Hopper was actually started filming in Ed Harris's role, and they were like, no, we're not. Nope, we're switching out.
Well, I mean, you have to think at that point too, like that's post rehab Dennis Hopper, who was still kind of a fucking maniac in like not the ways that Ed Harris is a maniac in this. So Man, yeah, I can only imagine what that would look like. Robin Williams and Dennis Hopper in this
Oh my
movie.
gosh,
Oh,
it's a-
fuck. That's totally different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then it needs to be. I think it's taken completely differently. Like, I think Ed Harris's obsession gets taken just enough that you kind of buy it. I didn't think it was that amazing, but he got nominated for. He was the only. He's the only acting. I think they had a writing and an acting nomination for the Oscars, and then. He and Jim Carrey both won Golden Globes. Jim Carrey wasn't even nominated for the Oscars, so that was kind of their award haul. But yeah, I don't know how I felt about him being maybe the best supporting actor in all of movies that year. I didn't look at the rest of the year, but it is interesting to think, because I think this is the same era Dennis Hopper, like coming off of Super Mario Brothers,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
which is. Man,
She's great in.
Just take
Just-
another.
yeah.
But he's a vindictive, crazy person, so it could have happened again. Yeah, I think that's. I had a lot of thought. Man, Jim Carrey was really the most famous person up there. He was like one of the top 5 most famous people in Hollywood for a stretch. When you think about this and The Mask and Liar Liar, and he's done some interesting things since and some good things. But this might be peak him, and we just didn't know it at the time because he kept kind of doing significant movies.
Yeah. I mean, I'd argue Eternal Sunshine is.
Well, Eternal. Okay,
Like-
peak, not best performance,
Oh,
but
you mean
peak
like
of
most
fame.
popular. Yeah.
Yeah, you know how I feel about Eternals.
Yeah.
I watched. For some reason, the other night, I really wanted to watch Wimbledon, which is a rom-com with Kirsten Dunst and Vision. Paul Bettany, who deserves really to be identified not as Vision. I'm so sorry.
Did Wimbledon come out around the same time as? Isn't there one called like Match Point that's Kirsten Dunst?
So
Or, no,
Match
wait,
Point is
you
Scarlett
said it's-
Johansson
Scarlett
a couple
Johansson,
years
okay.
later. Very different. One's a
Yeah.
rom-com, one's more of like a. It's her and Jonathan Rhys Davies, and it's kind of creepy.
Yeah. It just feels to me like I just remember it was like it's not like every year you get a new tennis movie and then they were just like two pretty quick and it wasn't as bad as like The Illusionist and The Prestige because I don't remember either of those movies, like either of Wimbledon or Match Point. But
Yeah. But it got me on this Kirsten Dunst. I didn't watch anything else by her, but I'm considering it. And we just watched Eternal Sunshine fairly recently, but I was like, oh, she has a super underrated filmography, especially if you're one of those people who actually thinks Bring It On is like secretly a really good high school movie and a really good
do
comedy.
you still think that? I feel like there's podcast evidence that says you maybe don't believe
it's
that.
the 25th anniversary. I'm reading all these pieces that are like, it's so underrated. And when we watched it, I was ready for it to be like a Mean Girls-esque movie, and I was disappointed.
Yeah, I remember. I'm
How many of the Bring It Ons have you seen?
Probably 2.5.
Oh, that's surprisingly
I definitely
low.
saw the second one just because it was the second one, and then the third one is Hayden Panettiere, and so that was good enough reason for me to watch that one. I don't think I made it all the way through, which is saying something because I make it through some pretty bad movies. All right, I want to dive in on him real quick. Okay, let's just talk about this from 1994 to 2000. In fact, to 2004. Jim Carrey's IMDb: Ace Ventura, The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, Batman Forever, Ace Ventura 2, Liar Liar, Truman Show, Man on the Moon, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Bruce Almighty, Eternal Sunshine. That's an all-time, almost decade run.
yeah.
I think I've seen every movie on that list except for one. And I'm somebody who doesn't watch a lot of
Yeah.
movies.
Yeah.
I skipped a couple of like smaller ones, but he's dramatically slowed down, but he picks some pretty good things. I know Kidding is well thought of. He was good as he can be in Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't even know what to say about that. But yeah, I think after Fun with Dick and Jane, things start going downhill.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to think that he was at the top. And fun fact, his daughter tried out for American Idol one season, and she wasn't very good, but she got through because guess what?
Yeah.
Her dad's Jim Carrey.
She probably didn't wear the mask either, which definitely would have gotten her into like top 12.
Where does this rank in your Jim Carrey movies?
I have a pretty low opinion about Jim Carrey movies, to be honest.
Really?
So this is probably pretty far up there, just because I mean, Eternal Sunshine is possibly my favorite movie of all time. So that's definitely number one. There's probably 2 or 3. I'm trying to think of other ones that
I mean, I'm pretty like Eternal Sunshine, Man on the Moon, and Truman Show are those are probably my favorite ones.
Yeah. I think How the Grinch Stole Christmas is just weird, but actually fairly well done Christmas movie. Oh, Gwen
like
disagrees.
it a lot, no.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah.
I do. I love it.
No, I think
he's
it's out there,
perfect
but
for
he
that,
does
yeah.
great in it. Apparently, it was like the most miserable experience in the world. The Mask and Dumb and Dumber, to me, Dumb and Dumber, I was not on the train with because I was a little too young, and I just watched it a little too late then to really appreciate the stupidity.
That's what it was.
The Mask was a big one as a kid. I was not huge into Ace Ventura, but I like the setup for Liar, Liar, and Yes Man. Very similar, like
Yeah.
when you think about it. But I like those. We're gonna put this rule on you, And but yeah, I was just curious because I'm like, oh, he's super talented, but yeah, he's not one of my favorites. But I think it's a great list of credits.
I mean, I feel like he kind of has some like categories of movies of his performances, because there was stuff in this that I'm like, this is very reminiscent of the scenes from Eternal Sunshine when he's going through the memories and he's like, he does this thing where he kind of bends over and like does this, like twists his head back and forth, like it's the exact same face and movement. But then you have his usual shtick that I cannot stand in Ace Ventura and The Mask. That like,
but I do think what I'm impressed about in this is if he has half his ridiculous, and he can be as zany and physical as anyone. The fact that he straddles that line with the seriousness is what I think impresses me about this movie. But you're right, there are always moments where you get something. Actually, that's why I don't like Ace Ventura. I think it's too much of that. But for whatever reason, those other movies, if you saw it at the right age, it kind of works.
Dude, 90s comedy was weird. All you had to do was talk in a weird ass voice, and people were on the fucking floor. Yeah. Like Adam Sandler, Jim Carrey. Like, I mean, yeah, it was a rough time. I feel like for comedy.
Cool. Did you guys have any other thoughts on the Truman Show? Any existential psychological issues you need to vent about it?
Can we talk about how the writer guy, the director guy, like produced this amazing show that got billions of views, and his device for getting the dad back in was amnesia? Like,
I know, the most like soap opera thing. He said, "Well, I was stranded on an island and I just got back," or who knows? But he would have had to figure something. I don't know. But yeah, that is. I wonder what he does after this. I mean, unless they let him keep going, which sounds like you guys think he would, and I guess we're right. I guess you're right. He just like, we're gonna take a month. So. They're gonna take a month and produce like all this highlight content, still make tons of money, and then time for a new baby. This time it's a woman, because that's what they would change, or it's baby. Not a white.
Whoa, Whoa. Progressive.
A female-led reality show. Man,
I do think it's interesting, like, because I want to like be there for kind of that process of changing this over to a more lighthearted tone, because this movie is a weird sort of, it's like a dystopian sci-fi for one guy.
Yeah,
it's very weird that way, and I think there's tons of dark turns you could take with this, and the decision that I feel like is like pivotal of how the tone of this movie is going to be is, do we decide to reveal that it's a TV show right off the bat like they did, or do we start it off normal and weird shit starts to happen little by little, and then it's slowly revealed like halfway through the movie? That's when it's like,
that would have been a cool way to do it. I think
there's not always right or wrong, but it's like,
it would have been a very good twist. But I think either way, there's a lot of ways to mess this up, and I think they did pretty good. But I'd be down for a 10-episode Netflix miniseries where they did this, and it just picks up like 5 years or 10 years later, and they let him do it again. And there's because then you really get to explore the outside and probably the people who think this is unethical, although we have to buy into that this world allows it. You get to really delve into each actor when they're not with him. I had this weird thing when I was a kid, and it was probably because of this movie, but I was like, what if I'm an alien? And it's
fuck. We're compromised.
Like, what if I'm toxic and the only humans that can be around me have like a resistance? So my mom is like this really powerful human who can withstand my toxicity. And then when I turned 18, she finally got a break. And anyone like Tyler, when they found you, they were like, he is great. He can withstand this toxicity. We're gonna sit him right next to Mitchell at this stupid job. And
Mitchell,
it was a Truman Show-esque thing, but I was like, how can people withstand being in this environment for so long?
It's okay. I had a similar thing when I was 12 or 13.
Not an alien. When I was like 8, I thought that like, I'm like, what if I'm the only real human being and all you are just robots?
Which kids these days, because there's so many more shows like that, they're like, am I the only, is this Westworld?
Am I God?
Is this Westworld the suburbs and I'm just one of the androids? Hey, look, none of you guys had other really embarrassing stories of times you wouldn't have been wanted to watch. Thank you, Tyler McKinley, for your excellent story. So I had to just let you know I had some weird things associated with this. Last production thought, Jim Carrey had rewrite privileges. He could tell the director, no, we need to change this. Which when you get to that level, that's kind of crazy. But the director cast him. He was heavily involved. I'm like, at what point do you regret casting him? And you're like, this asshole tells me to change one more line. And the only ad-libbing they talked about was him in the mirror, which is interesting because that was the part where it's like, you do say weird shit into the mirror.
No.
I do. All right. Well, next week, we're going to have a grand old time. We're going to watch a Disney classic from our childhood called 101 Dalmatians, starring Glenn Close. And why are we watching that, you might wonder? Well, the special member of this IMDb crew, if you can call him that, the contributor to this film that led us there, his name is Robert Davis, and he is, thanks. Yeah.
That's his thanks. If you like thanks, you have Robert Davis to thank.
Someone thanked him at some point for this, and that is he only has 2 IMDb credits there, both thanks. Maybe he just gave somebody some money.
Probably.
But only 2?
I guess.
Anyway, we're going to do his other thanks movie, which is 101 Dalmatians.
Thanks, Robert Davis.
Thanks. So
Third credit right there. Where's our IMDb
Yeah, I'm
page?
going to add him to our extensive IMDb page.
I feel like I'm usually an optimist, and I got to tell you, I'm really not looking forward to this. So come back next week to just hear me rip apart some dog shit. That's not how that should be phrased. All right, we'll be right back with some recommendations. Welcome back to the Rewatchers on the podcast. Man, Truman Show was good. Now we're going to recommend some stuff, and I'll go first as soon as I pull up my note that says what I thought I was going to talk about. Speaking of Fiji, I watched some show on Amazon called Fiji Eco Challenge about people just using every adventure form of transportation, like to get across Fiji. And Bear Grylls hosted it, which I've never watched a Bear Grylls hosted show, but Fiji's beautiful. Good on Truman for picking a good spot.
You never watched, what was it? Was his Man vs. Nature? Or was
Man vs. Wild.
Man vs. Wild.
I've seen some of it, and I know he did the show with the celebrities, and I heard that was good. I'm not anti-Bear Grylls or survival stuff. I just know I couldn't do it, and it's not appealing to me to think about how would I survive in the wilderness. Like if I was on Lost, I probably would have gotten down pretty quick.
Yeah.
So it's fine. Yeah, and my Eagle Scout didn't do shit. The other one, I was thinking about this.
My mom.
Oh boy.
That was incredible. Man, that was like, oh man.
I knew it was. I set you up. Not really. I didn't know. I didn't. Who knew? Who knew you did Scout? I'm just kidding. I'm also watching a Netflix show called Inside Bill's Brain about Bill Gates. And it just shows what an insane genius he is and how much he's actually done to fix the world. And that's what makes me hate Jeff Bezos and maybe my future wife, Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, because they're doing way less with way more. Like, the things this man has done, along with Warren Buffett, who's given him half of his money, which is insane, is the things he's cured and changed and cleaned and the way he pushes technology to be affordable. Like, the man's nonstop. And he also hasn't really done much at Microsoft, especially since like 2008. So it's kind of crazy. Really interesting to see who I think when you were a kid, when you thought of the richest man in the world or like the tech genius, which now we have like 50 of, it was all him. Because even Apple didn't really have, Steve Jobs was not even a household name for a while. Anyway, the important one is after this movie was supposed to come out in April of 2018, I saw The New Mutants. And I went in, 1, I don't like horror movies, and I heard it was scary. 2, I had extremely low expectations for this. I was like, oh man, we're going to continue our run of Game of Thrones actors being disappointing after Game of Thrones. And I just had very little hope. And I really liked it. And I've actually seen a lot of intelligent people who agree with me, which makes me feel good. But the overwhelmingly people are like, it's a mess. I really don't think it's a mess. So it was originally delayed because they wanted to reshoot about 25% of the movie and make it scarier because the horror-esque trailer tested so well. And they never got to, because when they were about to, Fox was like, hold on a minute, we're going to sell to Disney. I will say the movie's isolated, so if they wanted to use these characters in any way, Disney could, because they mention the X-Men, but they don't mention any connection to the old X-Men. And originally there were going to be cameos. And that's the thing, this all takes place in a mental hospital. I love how isolated it is. It is really scary, and you have 5 characters you focus on, and each of them has an interesting arc that ties into their power and that ties into the end game. There's a few predictable elements, but like, I just don't think there's another comic book movie like it. Like, it has some genuinely scary stuff. It definitely has some John Hughes vibes just as far as these kids. And I was shocked. I thought I would hate it. And a couple of the powers are weird, and I like that. I like when you can make a super weird power super interesting. So it sent me on like a Wikipedia deep dive on these characters, and I think I might read my first ever comic book. I'm thinking about buying the 80s run that kind of inspired this. And I've read graphic novels, but I've never read a comic book. So anyway, I was shocked. Also, it just felt good to go back to the theater, and I'm really happy I went because I didn't think I would ever see this.
Yeah.
And I just like superhero shit, and I hope that Disney because down the line they're gonna develop X-Men and eventually meet the Avengers. I'm like, you could just plug one of these people and just go for it.
Yeah. Those were all like big names too. Like,
Yeah.
I could definitely see them being cast in stuff.
Yeah,
you
you have
like,
Maisie Williams and Anya Taylor-Joy. The lead actress is her name is Blue Hunt, I believe, and this is really her first role, and she is and it's really cool that they said they worked really hard to get a Native American actress and really find someone young and exciting. And it's crazy. I looked at her up on Instagram, and she's 3 years older now. She looks like a completely different person, which kind of sucks. I really wish they would have been able to play in this world a little bit more. But I think that's also important to show, like, different type of X-Men. And her power is interesting. It's like nothing else that I've seen in X-Men. And so I would really like to see them utilize these people, but they probably won't. That's okay. Anyway, I really recommend going to see New Mutants, especially because we haven't been in a while. Maybe my expectations were low. I don't know. Usually I like to recommend things hoping people will like it like I like it. I actually think you guys might not like it, and I don't give a shit. Anyway, that's my soliloquy for the day.
Well, now I really want to see it. You convinced me.
Here's the thing. Among the X-Men movies, like, it's probably second or third behind X2 and Logan.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
That's where it ranks in my... Because some of the X-Men...
Yeah, I mean, a lot. I mean, I'd say at least half. Or,
well, then they'll like have a good one. It's like, where did Days of Future Past come from?
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, I'm done. Gwen, what do you got for us?
Well, I often need books to drown out my nasty brain noises at night. And so this week I chose to re-listen to The Martian by Andy Weir. And it's just lighthearted and funny, and I see all these criticisms of the character of Mark Watney, like, oh, he would get depressed on Mars. Like, who cares? I'm here for the fun. And it's good, hard sci-fi, okay? And then I've been watching Brandon Sanderson's live streams as he signs the tip-in sheets for Rhythm of War, because I'm weird, I guess. But it's just really enjoyable to listen to him talk about world building and writing and various ways of handling character building. And so that leads me to oh no.
Have you read all of his work?
Most of it. I haven't read the Librarian series.
Someone pointed me, he has some standalone, I can't remember what it's called, but someone pointed it to me the other day, and I was like, he's got so many books. Which, apparently he's really good at. I haven't read any of his books, but he must be good the way he sells, and it's like, that's at least refreshing compared to these other two authors I won't name that can't finish their damn series.
Yeah, well.
Who I love, who might even be better writers, but finish.
He talked about Pat's, like, writing, like, the way he started writing and, like, how different it is from the way that Sanderson tackles writing. It's just really interesting. Yeah. Like, he doesn't say it's wrong. He just says it's different. And just that sort of thing. But that leads me to Hello Future Me, which it's a YouTube channel who does video essays on writing and world building and, like, how to handle things like class systems and magic systems and mental health. And it's really interesting, and it makes me appreciate writing more and be more amazed at my favorite writers and just think these people are so goddamn talented, and I love it.
It's putting it all together because I think there's some great world building, or, like, even when you think about the Truman Show just being a really good concept, to take that concept to then not just have a great world, but have great characters, and then have the story, the plot make sense for those characters in that world. Like, it's insanely difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hear it very often, but every once in a while you'll hear someone say, like, oh, writing is easy, and I want to strangle them because no, it's not.
It's so fucking easy.
Yeah.
It's
Then
so
why
successful
are you
with all my
selling
writing.
tons of books? Yeah, that pisses me off. Is Brandon Sanderson from Utah?
Yes. Well, no, I think he's from Idaho, but he lives in Utah.
Okay. Gotcha. I thought he was, I just was like, is he a local person?
He is a local person.
Yeah, I think he lives in Orem.
Yeah. He
That's
teaches
weird.
at BYU.
Oh yeah, I think maybe that's where I got that from. Maybe I knew he did. That's cool. Well, I have been meaning to read Mistborn for years, so maybe I'll watch his live streams. I've been watching weird live streams recently, so I feel that. Mostly of people sleeping. Tyler Harris, what do you got?
Well, okay. This is my weekly Mr. Robot update, I guess. I got to the end of season 2, and I like it more than I did last week. But I did realize my problem with that show so far is it's 2 seasons of plot and about 3/4 of a season's worth of character development. Because finally, at the end of season 2, I'm like, oh, this is where we should have done this 10 episodes ago. But that actually makes me hopeful for the next 2 seasons, which I've heard good things about. So hopefully I will be able to... I don't know. It's hard to recommend a thing where it's like, fight through half of it and the second half's real good.
I think Mr. Robot, no matter what, is very unique.
It's intriguing, for sure.
Is there there's a really famous one-shot episode. Was it in season 2?
No, I have not gotten to that yet.
Spoiler alert, there's a one-shot episode. But it's just an interesting world to delve into. So like, I almost recommend see how you feel about it. Because the first season is good.
Yeah. The other thing I'm going to recommend is I also saw a new movie this week called Bill and Ted Face the Music. And if you like Bill and Ted, go fucking watch Bill and Ted Face the Music. If you don't like Bill and Ted, don't go watch Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Do I need to have seen Bogus Journey? I don't know if I have.
You should see Bogus Journey.
All right. I'm going to invest my time.
I don't think... for me, Bogus Journey is not as good as Excellent Adventure, but it's way weirder, and I almost appreciate the dumb shit they do more. And the guy, William Sadler, who plays the Grim Reaper in Bogus Journey, is like... probably the best performance across all the movies, and he is in the third one. There's some story stuff. So anyways, it's really fun. I was shocked. Samara Weaving is in it, which I don't know if if anyone's really seen Ready or Not. That's the only other thing I've seen her in, but she's incredible. She plays one of Bill. I think she plays Bill's daughter. But yeah, it's that kind of movie. This one gets even weirder, but it's by far the biggest budget they've ever had. So it looks good. There's a lot of Kristen Schaal is in it as kind of a goofy character, and it's just a lot of fun. I just really enjoy those movies, and it's cool to see Keanu Reeves just continue to be in stuff, and especially to bring back that character, which is such a weird choice. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. So that's about it. That's
what a renaissance
this week. Yeah.
Him and McConaughey. We thought we lost him. Tyler McKinley, what do you got?
I have been playing a video game called Mortal Shell, and it's cool. It's essentially Dark Souls, but made by an indie studio of 3 or 4 guys. And it's very... They don't give a shit. They're like, yeah, we want to be Dark Souls, and we know it. There's no hiding it at all. But it does bring some cool, of its own, new ideas and flavor to it. Essentially, the cool mechanics about it are, you're essentially an H.R. Geiger ethereal being, and you decide that, I want to see what being human's all about. So you go and you find some dead bodies, and you inhabit them, and you possess them, and they all have different abilities and different backstories. So you can level, you can pick which one you like the most. They all fight differently, and you can level up their different abilities. So that's really cool. And then, since that's your shell, you have a power where you can harden up. So that's your blocking. There's no shields in this game, so you block just by holding left trigger, and you turn it all into a rock. And you can do that mid swing, which is cool, because if you swing and you realize you're going to time it too late, you harden up, they hit you, then you go and you finish your swing and you go into the guy. It's pretty cool. It's a little easier than Dark Souls, but I think I like that. I think there's moments in Dark Souls where I'm this is just sadistic, whereas this is oh, this is difficult but fair. And yeah, it's also shorter. It feels like an indie movie version of Dark Souls. It's a little smaller. It's kind of got some Zelda feels to it, with some temples you got to beat through. But yeah, I'm having a blast with it, and I really love it. And then the other thing I'm going to recommend is an old thing that I've been doing. I've been super busy the past 2 weeks doing a lot of art stuff, and so I've been listening to more music. And there's a band that there are 3 albums of that I'm my favorite album of theirs is whatever one I listened to last of those 3. and it's a band called Say Anything. And every time I like go a long time without listening to them, and I listen to one of those albums, I'm like, hot damn, holy shit, like. And so currently my favorite album is the self-titled, which is actually hanging on my living room wall, and that album is so cool. I remember Tyler Harris wrote me a letter on my mission and was like, hey, this came out, you're probably gonna hate it because it's really poppy. And but I fucking love it. It's hard to recommend that as like the first listen. There's some people I would recommend that. I'd be like, hey, if you want to get into this band, listen to this album. But most people I would say start, with something else, because then I feel like you can appreciate the kind of turn they took tonally for this album, coming from that angle of what they came from before. It's a very interesting album because about 90% of it's sung in character, and all the characters in it are horrible people. So there's a lot of uncomfortable subject matter in this thing that you would, if you didn't know that going in, you'd think that he's a terrible person. But yeah, just really great subject matter, really great production quality. It's their best produced album by a long shot. Because everything after that, he decided to record in the tin can in his garage. But yeah, Say Anything, self-titled album, super fucking good. Yeah. A lot of kids will like Do Better. It's a good song. But Less Cute is where it's at.
Shout out for the kids that are listening. They're looking for a new bop to introduce your friends to.
But I mean, and I don't know, it's just this perfect mix of all this stuff. It's like very like got some poppy stuff, but then it's got like the very dark emo stuff. And it's like, if you don't like the line in a song called "Death for My Birthday," if you don't like the line "I love life, but life's got a boyfriend," get the fuck out of here.
Poetry. I was thinking about, has there ever been a line in a song that you thought was really good, and then like 5 years later you're like, oh, I just thought it was great and it was poetry. Like mine was, I got my mind on my money and my money on my mind. I was like, wow, that is clever. Whoa, who would have thought? Like that works. It works both ways.
Shake it like a Polaroid picture.
Yeah, especially because we're a little post-Polaroid.
Yeah, I would say that's how I would define this era of time as post-Polaroid.
I would argue we're more into Polaroid now than we were when that song was written.
We're post-Polaroid.
In 2015 was the last year I worked at Best Buy. They had these little Polaroid cameras, and they were the biggest item around Christmas. We were sold out constantly, and I don't know if they're still around, but you see them in lots of like people use them for room decorations and stuff. And post them around.
Pretty sure Riley has one of those. She's
I actually think the concept of it is actually pretty cool. But
yeah, it's pretty rad.
Justin Hammer, bring us home.
All right. Just real quick, I've also started to play Mortal Shell. I am not very far into it. I just defeated a guy who had like bone swords for hands or something. I don't know. He's like the first boss I think that you really kind of come across. But the combat in that game is really cool. It's it's fun. You should check it out. As far as like recommendations go, there's a couple. I guess there's one YouTube channel that I would highly recommend, just because the dude is doing a ton of work and it's really impressive what he does. The channel is Curious Droid, and what it is like if you're a fan of like PBS documentaries or something of like war stuff, or like stuff like How It's Made, kind of, or like Discovery Channel stuff kind of like that. It's very similar. As a guy who it's like all self-made videos, I believe. He might have a small team that helps him out, but he just like explores. There's a lot of space stuff. He talks about like specific rockets that were built and goes into like the history and the programs that built these rockets, or like planes or engineering things that happened during World War II or World War I. It's like a lot of historical stuff, and it's just, he gets like all kinds of archival footage to go along with it. He does all the narration. He does a bunch of the animations himself, and it's just like really, really good quality stuff that if he's doing it all by himself, like it's incredible that he's able to do all of that. So I would definitely recommend checking that out. His latest video, I haven't watched it yet. It came out 3 days ago. He usually posts like once a month ish.
For that much production,
Yeah,
to be independent and post once a month, that's impressive.
definitely. Yeah. So the last one that he did is Why Can't We Find MH370? It was the flight that went down. Yeah. So I haven't watched that one yet, but the one before that was talking about the Lockheed AH-56 Cheyenne, which is a helicopter, and it's yeah. If you're into that kind of shit, definitely recommend it. And then
Sorry, what's the name of that channel?
Curious Droid.
Curious Droid.
Yeah. The other recommendation, I've mentioned before that a lot of the media that I consume is like Twitch streams and obviously YouTube and stuff. But I don't know if I've ever like mentioned specifically which Twitch stream that I watch. And I honestly think by hours consumed, this is probably the most media, like the highest media consumption that I consume. There's a lot of consuming in there.
We're getting into like NBA stat lines. Yeah, it's such a specific feeling thing all of a sudden.
I mean, r/NBA is the greatest subreddit on Reddit, by the way. That's my other recommendation. But anyways, the streamer is A Siegel. He just goes by Siegel. But if you want to look him up, it's A_Siegel, and he was a professional Overwatch player for a time. It's incredible. Like if you like professional gaming, like he is that kind of like tier of gaming. Maybe not quite as much because he doesn't play quote unquote professionally anymore. Even though he streams, like he's not in the pro scene. He's in the streaming scene now. But I really enjoy his streams quite a bit. I've been watching him for almost 4 years now, I think, is my sub.
It's like listening to a radio show every day.
My sub streak, yeah, my
on a commute.
Twitch subscription is, I think, coming up on 4 years. So, yeah, check him out. He's playing a lot of Apex right now. Plays a lot of Apex. He does do just kind of like variety stuff when he's not like really honed in on one FPS. Like he's mainly an FPS streamer, but he'll play whatever. Like he played through all of The Witcher 3, which I had to not watch because I haven't played it yet. Yeah, and he's got plans for like Cyberpunk when it comes out and all these other games. We watched Gamescom. He restreamed Gamescom this week, which is pretty cool to see. Upcoming games are coming out, and the new Doom Eternal DLC is coming out, which I'm really excited about. But yeah, check him out. A Siegel or just Siegel. But yeah.
I like to bring a current event to your guys' attention. This is an anti-recommendation. No one's cared about MTV or the VMAs for 10 years. I know. But someone was tweeting out because Billy Joe a few years ago was like really mad that MTV's like, you don't promote rock in any way anymore. Mm-hmm. Here are your 2020 nominees for Rock Video of the Year.
Oh, God. Okay.
Coldplay, Fall Out Boy, Green Day, The Killers, Blink-182, and here's the frickin' kicker, Evanescence.
Fuck off.
Wait, did they come out with something recently?
Apparently, I mean, I'm sure it's just
Does
her
that
and a
mean
new
a new
band.
Daredevil movie is out now?
Oh, I'm so glad Jennifer Garner came back to play Mom Electra. Yeah, it makes me so sad
Not
because
old enough for you?
I'm not, there's exception. Anyway, it just makes me mad because I know, like, I listen to a lot of pop now. I don't even listen to a ton of music anymore, but it makes me really, like, I totally get that mainstream culture has moved to hip-hop, and that's great, and I love a lot of hip-hop, but it makes me really sad to think that the biggest scene, which they probably didn't even air that award, it's weird that all of that could have been the same lineup 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I also want to recommend a TikTok channel called Geosaurus. It's a girl who's doing her PhD on the history of the Great Lakes and like everything, like the geology, the ecology, like it's, because like I like war documentaries, like I'm gonna check that YouTube channel out, but I just was like, why? And they're in 1 minute bite things. I was like, this is the weirdest thing, but I am the history of lakes. Let me tell you, I spent 2 hours just flipping through her TikToks the other day. So, and her name is Geo, which is crazy in itself.
Wow.
Mental.
Some people, everything's just handed to them.
It was fitting. Yeah. Anyway,
I should lay tile.
and she
I
Me
should start a
too?
tiling business.
The Tylers?
just the random things you can find interesting things about the Great Lakes. I know a lot about the Great Lakes now.
That's
I've never
awesome.
even been to any of the. Well, I've been to them, but I haven't ever been near the lake. Anyway,
Wasn't there
you can find weird, great shit on TikTok. That's my story.
Wasn't there a woman last year who, like, it was newsworthy? She did her PhD on, like, marijuana had something to do with weed, and that was like her name. Or no, maybe it had to do with it was names in the black community. I think was what her PhD was on. It was related and her first name was, I think, marijuana.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember hearing about that? Yeah.
Oh man.
Anyways,
incredible,
cool stuff.
I mean, I think we should also mention a sad thing, just because it like broke my heart Friday night. But Chadwick Boseman passed away. Apparently, he was battling cancer for the last 4 years.
Colon cancer.
That's when he was filming.
How do you do what he did? Oh my gosh.
He put out so many movies during that time.
I
was wondering. I was like, okay, is that maybe his part was smaller in the later Marvel movies? Because I thought it was like, no, he filmed Black Panther in that time. He started at stage 3.
Yeah.
And I think he's played like 5 historic Americans. Obviously, Black Panther is insanely important, like, to movies and to culture. It is really crazy what he did. Not just during that, but he was only 40. He was 43. A lot of places kept saying 42 because of the movie 42, and they thought that matched up really well. But it's crazy. But he was almost not a household name, but absolutely was a household name.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I was
real
just
bummer.
he was someone I was so excited about.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it's one of those things that's like it felt like I just got there too late, and just as things, it's such a bummer. But for him to have accomplished what he did, going through what he did is really amazing. That's incredible. So
not a lot of people saw this, but he's in a biopic called Get On Up. And he's really amazing in it. And it's not even a movie I like that much. I like biopics in general, but just his range is pretty.
He's so damn likable. I don't like Black Panther the movie, but I think he's so charismatic in that film that he's very watchable.
And he did a video with Jimmy Fallon where he surprised people who were telling a poster of Black Panther what they mean to him, and it's maybe my favorite over tweeted video of all time.
I've seen so many posts of little black boys with their figures of Black Panther, and it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah. When we talk about representation, like, it is so important that we had him. And I think this is, I don't know, I tried to do this as a white person, to look back and look at what people that were my idols when I was a kid were people of color. And I found a good amount. I'm sure there were way more white people. That's just not what I was focusing on. But I was really happy to know what I did know, but to think how much that's grown since then, and how much that means to like my family that's not white. And it's interesting that he did that so well, and obviously that's an important property, and I'm sure they'll go about it in a really great and respectful way. But it would have been great to have him. I do remember I disliked him at first because I thought he was British, and I was so mad about so many British people playing Americans. They steal all the best American parts.
He's not even American in that movie.
No, not in Black Panther. But he played Jackie Robinson. Anyway, in general, but
it's like the new Netflix movie that has all the British actors in it that's coming out. What is that movie called? It's got Spider-Man. What's that guy's name? Tom Holland. The new Tom Holland movie that Netflix is doing. It takes place in like the deep south, but it's like all British actors.
We get it. You're better at our accent than we're at yours. I'm trying to think of the last American who did a good one. John Lithgow in The Crown. That's the only one I could think of. Anyway,
I'm try to do it, John Lithgow. He's just got a circly mouth. That's what I think when I think of John Lithgow.
I still just think of Third Rock from the Sun, even though he's like come a long way. And I think he was really good in Dexter, which I've never seen, but I just hear good things about. Have you seen Defy Bloods?
I have, yeah.
How was that?
I enjoy it. I mean, it's a Spike Lee movie.
I love that he goes for it. And
fuck,
I've been meaning to watch it for months, and now I definitely will. It's been hard to, like, 42's not streaming, and I meant to see that, but I kind of heard it was just kind of another Disney-fied sports movie race film, so I'm interested. But I appreciate you bringing that up because he was pretty great. All right, cool. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week with 101 Dalmatians. Tyler, if people want to find us online, where would they do that?
I mean, you get emails at rewatchersonthepod@gmail.com, or follow us on Instagram and Twitter at rewatcherspod. Thank you.
All right, this has been Rewatchers Pod. My name is Mitchell Marshall. I've been here with
Tyler McKinley,
Justin Hammer,
Tyler Harris,
Gwen Hammer.
Peace out.